Hey there, innovation champions. Melissa Dinwiddie here. Here's something that might reframe how you think about your entire organization's capacity for innovation. The people most likely to drive real breakthroughs aren't the ones in your creative departments. They're in your engineering teams, your data science orgs, your project management offices. And something you're probably doing right now is making sure they never find out. Let me tell you something about myself first. Nobody would ever put me in an analytical person bucket. If there's a creative person bucket nearby, that is where you would find me. I have an arts background. I'm a lapsed jazz singer. I'm a performing improviser. I made my living as a professional artist and calligrapher. I am, by most people's first read, a creative type. But here's the thing. I also spent years doing my own web design and development. Like a lot of technical stuff, right? And countless times I would hit a wall. Something wasn't working. Some functionality wasn't behaving the way that I needed it to. And I would have to troubleshoot my way through it. The goal was always clear. Fix the problem, get the outcome. And I got to tell you, the satisfaction of finally getting there, woo, that was immense. Probably the most satisfying problem solving ever is getting to the end of some kind of technical issue. But what I remember most vividly isn't actually reaching the finish line. It's the losing myself in it. It's the trying and failing and trying differently over and over and over until something clicked. That flow state that kicked in, not despite of the difficulty, but because of it. And that experience, which I have had just like countless times, that experience changed how I think about creativity. Because what I was doing, every single time this has happened to me, methodically, obsessively, iteratively, that is exactly what engineers do every day. And it is at its core what innovation actually requires. We have made a category error as a culture. We have conflated creativity with so-called right brain activities. Painting, dancing, writing, anything that produces something aesthetic, that's what we call creative. And by extension, we've decided that analytical people, the ones who are more comfortable with logic than with metaphor, we've decided that these folks are somehow creativity adjacent at best. And that is exactly wrong. Creative excellence and real innovation require very specific cognitive strengths. Things like asking, what if? It's one of my favorite questions. Generating possibilities without immediately foreclosing them. Things like noticing patterns, noticing nuances that others might miss. Things like connecting dots across really disparate domains. Things like finding enjoyment in the doing itself, not just the outcome. All of these things are not right brain traits. They're actually analytical ones. The person who loses themselves in a debugging session, who feels genuine pleasure in the process of tracking down why something isn't working, that person already has the innovation wiring. They just haven't been told that that's what it is. And here's where it gets costly. There are two versions of the analytical people aren't creative myth. One is what I call external, and one is what I call internal. And both of them are quietly dismantling your innovation capacity every day. The external version sounds like this. Let's put together a cross-functional innovation team. And then you look around the room and you realize the engineers weren't invited. Because it's assumed that their value lies solely in execution, not in generating ideas. So an entire cohort of people gets completely overlooked before the conversation even starts. So that's the external version. Then there's the internal version, and that's even more insidious because it lives inside the people themselves. That's the engineer who sits in a brainstorm and thinks, I'm not creative. I don't have anything useful to offer here. So they don't even raise their hand. They don't pitch the half-formed idea. They don't connect the dot that they noticed that nobody else would have seen. It's hard to be creative when you think you're not. And when that belief gets reinforced by organizational structures, by who gets invited to brainstorming sessions, innovation sessions, by whose ideas get funded, by who's asked to just execute, it calcifies. People stop trying to offer what they've been told they don't have. Here's the truth. Everyone in an organization has the potential to offer an unexpected solution. The leadership team, the engineers, the project managers, the janitorial staff, every single person. And when we limit our thinking about who can contribute what, we really hobble ourselves. Now, I've seen this play out directly when I worked with 125 project and program managers at the PMI San Francisco Bay Area chapter's Professional Development Day. These are people who live and breathe Gantt charts and risk registers. Something really struck me about how quickly they took to the micro experiments that I ran with them. It wasn't that they overcame their analytical nature to access creativity. It was that their analytical nature was the creativity. They noticed patterns in the exercises right away. They found the lateral connections really fast. And when I gave them permission to be imperfect, to make crap, as my framework puts it, they dove in with exactly the kind of iterative, process-loving enthusiasm that I would expect from someone who genuinely loves the doing. One attendee described it afterward as electric. Another said creativity suddenly felt accessible, even for those who don't think of themselves as creative. And the shift wasn't in their capability. Nothing about them changed. It was in their permission. So what this means for your team, if you're a senior leader trying to build an innovation culture and you've been waiting for your analytical people to become more creative, I want to offer you a reframe. They don't need to become more creative. They need to stop believing they aren't. And that means explicitly including your engineers, your analysts, your project managers, all your analytical types in those innovation conversations, not just implementation. It also means building repeated low-stakes experiments that let people discover their own creative instincts through doing, not being told they're creative, through the doing. It also means stopping the cultural shorthand that assigns creativity to certain roles and execution to others. You got the creative team over here and the project team over here. Everybody gets to do the work of creativity. The bottleneck in most organizations isn't a shortage of creative thinkers. It's that your most rigorous, pattern-hungry, process-loving people have been told, whether directly or indirectly, that the creativity conversation isn't theirs to have. That's not a talent problem. It's a permission problem. And it's one that you can actually solve. So here's what I want to leave you with. The next time you're in a brainstorm, a strategy session, an innovation initiative, look around the room. And then think about who isn't in the room, because I bet there's an engineer, an analyst, a project manager somewhere in your organization right now who has a dot connection nobody else would make, and who's talked themselves out of saying it because they decided a long time ago that creativity wasn't theirs to claim. That's the innovation gap that organizations aren't measuring. And again, it's fixable. Now, I would love to know, when you were a kid, were you the one who tinkered obsessively with something until you figured it out? Or did you prefer to follow the instructions? Tell me in the comments, because I have a theory about which one predicts innovative thinking more than any personality test ever could. And if you want to start giving your team structured permission to experiment without the pressure of being creative, grab my book, Innovation at Work. It's on Kindle right now for just 99 cents. That sale ends on April 23rd, so don't wait. Link in the description. And if this was useful, hit like, subscribe, ring that bell. I'll be back soon with practical tools for leaders who want innovation that actually sticks. Until next time, stay curious, stay playful, and keep creating the impossible. Ciao.